I just don't think that you should buy eye contact. You know, I just don't think you should buy eye contact. Eye contact, it can be trained. Absolutely. You can train it with the look at me command and all of that stuff. Look at me, give a treat. The dog learns. I look at you, there could be a treat coming. But to me, eye contact is earned, right? It's earned. There's something so amazing when you have a dog that comes up to you and is making eye contact to show you what they found. Or they are, they go out the door, but then they turn around, they look back and they're like, they make that eye contact. They're like, are you coming? That is sacred. Like, that's trust and connection. That is sacred. Yes, today on the podcast, we are talking about myth busting today. That's right, we're busting some myths. First one, does obedience equal leadership? The answer may surprise you. Let's get into it.
Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it.
Hey there, friend. Just wanted to take a moment to personally invite you to join me inside the Fearless Framework, our 12-month online program designed for dog lovers who are ready to build an incredible bond with their dog. So this is for you if you've been craving that deeper connection. If you started to realize that training your dog to look good in front of other people doesn't actually make life better for either of you. Inside the Fearless Framework, we flip the script. We put the focus on where it truly belongs, on trust, understanding, and real relationship building. Because let's be honest, teaching a bunch of obedience commands might impress your neighbor, but it doesn't mean your dog feels safe or confident or even seen. So if you're ready to ditch the pressure and finally learn how to show up as the person your dog actually wants to follow, I'd love to see you inside. To learn more, go to beyondobedience.ca/fearless and let's... Well, hello, my beautiful friend. It is Tracy. Welcome to Beyond Obedience, the podcast. Super duper welcome. If you're brand new, hey, welcome to the podcast. All right, friend, I have to tell you, it's been a hard week. And I am barely hanging on. So I guess I should apologize. If you're brand new, this isn't the podcast to start with. Scroll down, pick another one to start with. Get a better first impression of me. Please, I beg you. It's been a hard week. And it is, life gets lifey. So today on the podcast, I thought I'd talk about something that is easy. It's easy for me to talk about because I can only do easy today. I can't get into some deep stuff today, even though that's on my heart to talk about. I won't be able to get through it today. So that will be on a later date when I'm feeling up to it. But today, I thought we would do some myth busting. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is. It's a button on this machine. I've never gotten to use it before, so I thought it would be the new signal for myth busting. All right, let's just get into it. There's no rhyme or reason to that. I'm just hitting buttons. That's just all that is. All right, so let's kick off with a bit of myth busting today. This first one might feel a little bit spicy, but it's the idea that obedience equals good leadership, right? Spoiler alert, it does not. It does not. You know why? Because I have seen the most obedient dogs in the world still blow off commands when their owner doesn't have a treat pouch or take off when the leash is not, when the leash is off, all of that stuff. They're still barking and lunging at the door and growling at the mailman and doing all that stuff. And yet they have an epic heel. Right? Take them to the training hall and they're just stellar on those obedience commands, right? And so it's a little bit of a kick in the pants for many, because when you start to struggle with your dog, the first thing that you do, if you Google stuff, it's going to be like, well, take your dog for more training. They need to be more obedient. And, well, we're going to talk about why obedience doesn't always mean what we think it means. Okay. So the very first myth is that obedience does not equal leadership, right? Just because your dog does a heel or sits or stays doesn't mean that they're doing it because you're somebody worth following. That's not why they're doing it. Okay. I will say this, even my leadership scorecard, if you're brand new, if you've never heard my leadership scorecard, the leadership scorecard, very simply, it's an exercise in awareness. Okay. And every single time you do something for your dog, you're going to ask yourself, was that my idea and the dog followed through? Or was it the dog's idea and I followed through? So if it was the dog's idea and you follow through, the dog scores a point in the leadership scorecard. And if it was your idea and the dog follows through, then you score a point, right? Seems very simple. And the idea of the leadership scorecard is not to score all the points. That's not the idea. You're not going to wake up in the morning and be like, the dog gets no points today. Like, I'm going to be on it. That's not how it's about. It's just this idea of sort of being aware of what's going on in your house. And generally speaking, if you're struggling with any sort of behavior, let's say even stuff like your dog is pulling on the leash or your dog is barking at the door and they don't listen to you when you ask them to stop, all of that stuff. If you take a moment, you kind of think back in your day and you're like, oh, the dog wanted out. That was his idea. The dog wanted me to get him a treat. That was his idea. The dog wanted me to play with him. He came and dropped a ball on my lap and I just started playing with him. That was his idea, right? When we start to think about it, we start to think about this idea that the dog is getting us to move our feet. They're getting us to do something for them. And this is sort of ingrained in dogs. It's part of their communication. It's part of their understanding of, of where they stand in the world, right? It starts when they're very, very young, when they're puppies. And, if puppy A play bows and runs away and gets puppy B to chase them, well, they scored a point. They got what they wanted. They knew what to do to get that puppy to move their feet. Same thing though, if there's a juicy bone in the middle of the play run and one puppy goes up and stands over top of it and the other puppy backs up and says, okay, that's yours. It's the same thing. That puppy got the other puppy to move away from the bone. They scored a point. And it's not personal, right? It's just conversation. It's just how they communicate and how they figure stuff out. So when we come along and we get the dogs to do things, when we get them to move their feet because we've trained them to do so, in our minds, we might think, well, I obviously scored a point. I asked the dog to sit. The dog moved its feet and sat. Point for the human. But this is where it gets a little bit like kick in the pants, a little bit. Because if you have trained that command, meaning you've taught a cue, you've given a cue, you've gotten the behavior, you've rewarded that behavior, that is not the same as influencing the dog's behavior by your presence. It's not the same, right? It doesn't hold the same weight as, let's say, a dog that steps into another dog's space and gets them to back out of their way, right? It's not the same. It doesn't hold the same value. It's transactional, right? It's transactional. It means the dog is doing it for the treat. They're not doing it because you influence them. They're waiting on the cookie. They're waiting on the transaction. And even if you don't give that cookie all the time, there's still this understanding that occasionally a treat may come if I perform this behavior. So therefore, we're not really getting the same leadership points as one might think, right? So what does it mean to be a leadership, like leadership to a dog? Very simple. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me say all of these things before, but in order to be a good leader to a dog, you have to be calm, you have to be predictable in energy, predictable in emotion, predictable in your physical movements, predictable. You need to be trustworthy. You need to be somebody that is worthy of their trust. And you need to be the one that they watch for when they're unsure. When you're a good leader, your dog is like, I'm unsure about this. They're going to look to you and be like, how do you feel? And if you feel okay, they're going to go, well, you must be okay. So therefore I'm okay. Leadership is not about control. It's about being like an emotional anchor to your dog, right? It's who your dog orients to when the rest of the world gets weird, and who's kidding who. Everything in Humansville for dogs is weird, right? Everything that we do is weird. We're a weird species, right? To them, and to most people, we're weird. Okay. The other thing that I want to talk about, because this just came up, I just saw this, and again, highly respected trainer. I'm not at all dissing obedience. I'm certainly not dissing this trainer, but I was watching a video on, and there's so many different videos on how to teach a dog to heel, how to teach a dog to walk nicely on a leash. There's so many videos on that, right? And all of them, I mean, you could probably pick and choose. You could probably find one and be like, that one makes sense to me. Try it. And as long as you follow the instructions and you do all the reps and you have all the treats and you do all the things, you'll probably get satisfactory results, right? You get a dog that understands when I say this word heel, I need you to be beside me. They'll get it. But this one was different. I hadn't heard anybody talk about it in this way before, but this one was you actually are teaching your dog to watch you, right? That's actually the cue that you are working on. And so you start off with just getting the dog to look at you, and you're cueing and, treating and doing all the things. And then eventually you add movement to that. And the idea around this, which is a good idea, is that your dog, obviously, in order for you to turn their head around to look at you. And I was like, that's a very interesting way to teach a heel. The only thing their head around to look at you. And I was like, that's a very interesting way to teach a heel. The only thing, and I've mentioned this before, I'm going to say it again. The only thing that gets me about the look at me as a command is I just don't think that you should buy eye contact. I just don't think you should buy eye contact. Eye contact, it can be trained. Absolutely. You can train it with the look at me command and all of that stuff. Look at me, give a treat. The dog learns. I look at you, there could be a treat coming. But to me, eye contact is earned, right? It's earned. There's something so amazing when you have a dog that comes up to you and is making eye contact to show you what they found. Or they are, they go out the door, but then they turn around, they look back and they're like, they make that eye contact. They're like, are you coming? That is sacred. Like, that's trust and connection. That is sacred. I want that. I want a dog that's like, you good? You coming? I think that's what true leadership, and I would say a better word for it is partnership. That's what true partnership is all about with a dog. And so that's what I want. That's what I want for you. I don't want you to train a dog to look at me and then buy them with a cookie. I want your dog to look at you and be like, are you coming? Are you here? Do you see this? Let's go together. That's what we are striving for when it comes to, having an incredible bond. If you haven't heard my story of my time with the Husky Jace, one of the things was I was at a 9-day seminar in Texas with my mentor Nelson, and the whole part of that seminar was we were given a rescued Husky that we had to live with 24/7 without any crates. And the only tools that we had was a leash and a collar, and that was it. And of course, these were huskies. So, I mean, I still remember, I remember, I remember the very first day, like right after we got them, and we got we were assigned our dogs, we picked our dogs, and then we went out into this little field and we were walking them around. And oh gosh, this dog, it yanked me, and I mean yanked me off my feet, and it get hurt. And we were going to cheat. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. My friend and I, we were going to cheat because she had ordered some collars, some training collars, and she was going to get them in Texas. And so we were just like, we were waiting for these training collars to come in. And we were going to be like, when Nelson's not looking, we're putting training collars on these dogs because, we had our excuses. We were like, we're too old. We're too old for this. We don't heal the same, It's not like I'm in my 20s where I can like bounce back from being jerked around. It's like being in a fender bender, like all day, every day, being like pulled off your feet in every direction, no matter. Like this dog just went wherever he wanted to, and I had absolutely no leverage. Anyway, I'll get to the point of the story. The point of the story was we were sitting there eagerly waiting for these collars. We're like, I can't wait for these collars to come in. Can't wait for these collars to come in. And we kept on asking Nelson. We're like, when are we going to get to the part where we like teach them how do you teach them how to like walk without having the treats, without the cues, without the stuff? How do you do it? And he was like, yeah, we'll get to that. And day 1 went by, day 2 went by, day 3 went by, still not get to it. The collars still aren't there. Karen, my friend, is like now getting like emergency chiropractic work done because she's been yanked around. It was a big thing. And I was really frustrated because I'm like, I don't think Nelson knows how to teach us how to walk dogs on a leash. That's what I had determined. I'm like, I don't think he knows. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, at the end, not at the end, but by the time the collars came in, which I can't remember what day it was day 5 or 6 or something like that. By the time the collars came in, I didn't need to use one. It was, without a doubt, the craziest thing I had ever sort of done because in a very short amount of time, I went from a dog who couldn't care less about me. Like, this dog couldn't care less about me. He didn't know me, didn't care about me. We had no relationship whatsoever. And I was literally just the dope at the end of the rope that this poor dog had to drag around. I was like this big anchor. This anchor that was just preventing him from having the fun that he wanted, to a dog that would, go find something and then come and get me and be like, come, like, hurry up, human. Like, I mean, admittedly, he was much faster than I was, so he was always a little bit ahead of me, but he would come back and get me. He would go find something and he'd come and get me. He would look at something and then be like, did you see that? Like, all of a sudden I had a dog that was so entirely engaged with me, making eye contact, hanging out with me, walking beside me, again, sometimes he was a little bit in front of me because, just generally speaking, I am lame and limpy and I'm a human and I walk at a snail's pace according to a dog. But he adjusted everything for me, and it was an miraculous change with no equipment, but also no training, no treats. Like, no training, no treats. There was no cues, no sits, no downs, no, like, sit up here and do this and I'll give. There was none of that. None of that. Which is why I'm so passionate about this as a baseline, because I know that if I can do that with a husky that I only met in a very short time, you can do that with a dog that you've already earned their trust. They already love you. They already know everything about, you can certainly do that as well. So there you go. Eye contact is earned. It's not bought. That's where I stand on that. Not that it's not that it's a bad way to teach a heel. If you wanted to actually teach the obedience of it, I'm sure it's a great way to do it. But you can also work really hard to get a dog that wants to walk beside you because you're awesome, which is a completely different feeling. So there you go. Let's wrap this up. To wrap this up, obedience can be helpful. It can be something that, again, obedience is English as a second language. It is creating a shared language between you and your dog, but recognizing that you're teaching the dog how to share your language, you can also share in theirs. And that's where leadership comes in, right? Understanding how dogs utilize space and energy and intent and all of the ways that they communicate will help build a communication system with the dog based on their terms. Leadership is about how your dog feels about you, with you, not what they can do for you. Okay. And I mean, honestly, you can marry the two. You can have obedience and beyond obedience, marry those together, and chef's kiss, magic. So there you go. So today I invite you to pause, maybe say how interesting this podcast was, how interesting. Maybe take today and just kind of think about your leadership scorecard. Be like, where am I at that? Like, where am I at that? And then ask yourself, what are ways that I can engage with my dog and learn a little bit more about them and how they exist in the world so that I can create this incredible partnership with them? Let me know what you think. All right, I think that's it for today, my friend. As always, if you liked this show, could you do me a favor? Head on over to Apple, give me a 5-star written review. Really helps to push the podcast out to more and more people. Come over to the free Facebook group, Living Beyond Obedience. Share your dog pics and your how interesting moments over there. And if you're someone who is like, I would like to learn more about that and hang out with Tracy once a month and get questions answered and have a Zoom and just chit chat with her, then I encourage you to join us over in the Fearless Framework, our 12-month online coaching program. We meet once a month with Zoom. You can send in videos. You can ask questions. You can meet with like-minded dog lovers like yourself, hang out. It is the best place on Facebook, hands down. You won't find a better group of people. You won't find a better place than inside that Fearless Framework student community. So I encourage you to do that. Head on over to the show notes to find out more. And as always, my dog loving friend, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and is not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.